today's not printed letter to the Advocate newspaper. You know, after all, they are nothing more than a mouthpiece for the Council and the United Nations agendas. Must have been a Friday job and quit on the weekend. Of the 5 topics the Burnie City Council was offered to choose from at last night's meeting, they chose one: the low ball nothing burger, as predicted. It has been 3 years now I've been on a quest to find the end of the accountability roundabout of never-ending handballs. Pause on that just for a sec. The guy that they just let out after serving 2, maybe 3 years of a 9-year sentence that they just let out a few weeks ago, he's already back in for another home invasion. Make no mistake, this is not the court's fault. This is bureaucrats. This is the social workers, the blue-haired Karens, the humanitarian people messing up the judiciary and the correctional services. This is bureaucracy gone mad. It's legislature overruling law. Legislature is not law. I'm sick of trying to bloody tell people that. Legislature is not law. Legislature is made up by government and suits no purpose other than bureaucracy and revenue. That's not law. How does that serve we the people in any way in our communities? How does that keep the peace of the public? You know, their so-called social cohesion. Cohesion is coercion. Never forget that. Now back to my letter. It has been 3 years now I've been on a quest to find the end of the accountability roundabout of never-ending handballs. Council spends like a drunken sailor and permits building applications to build an ugly digital city with a $100 million plus courthouse across the road from the police station, across the road from the strength den where all the cops work out. And just let that sink in for a moment. That's 100 million. Yes, I know, they say 86.5 million. Tomatoes, tornadoes. Tomatoes, tornadoes. But you tell me, when anything ever in the history of Constown, the town that gets conned by Steve Cons, has anything ever, period, been completed under budget? The only question they were going to allow me to ask was cui bono. Who benefits from the extra $17.3 million announced on New Year's Eve, the day nobody reads the paper other than to see where the party at? Which, of course, they were going to address with their little slideshow of fudged maths and in-depth summary of broad nothing speak. So yeah, I walked out. I'm not going to insult myself by sitting around and listening to that bullshit. I have more self-respect than that. Than to think that just sitting there casting a glare at them is going to make any difference. They feed off that shit. For example, they'd rather play divide and mislead politics and gaslight Councillor Aitken into calling his wanting racial unity racism. I, on this occasion, which is rare, support his stance 100%. Pre-apologetic enforced anti-racism is the worst kind of racism. It does nothing but throw fuel on the fire that should have burnt out 150 years ago. In conversation here one day at the front of my house, Trent once said to me, We're slow creatures to learn. And my response is, yes, Trent, indeed we are. Because we're about to become victims of our own making. We're about to become the colonised indigenous. Are you born here? You're indigenous. You're about to become colonised by imperialistic United States of Israel. Oh, but we're military allies. Yeah. But economically, we're China. Now, I know they play these little race card arguments on purpose, just like Pauline Hanson and Anthony the fucking coconut mundane on Sky News. That's why I call it pre-apologetic enforced anti-racism. Apologise for what? How can you pre-apologise for something that happened 200 years ago? Why do we have to acknowledge someone being here before us, when anyone with half a brain knows that they wouldn't have been the first here? No way. That'd be like claiming that you and me were the second here all these generations down the track. Had nothing to do with us. Should we forget it? No. But the disunity should have burnt out at least 150 years ago. It's well past 150 years past time to put that argument to bed and wake up to the fact it's about to happen. It is happening right now. All over again by the United States of Israel. They're not our friends. They're nobody's friends. The Roman Empire never fell. It just moved further west. It just keeps moving west. It just keeps moving west. We've come full circle now. They're about to come into the economic global south and they want to take the east. Which is funny, because when you look at a globe, the west is moving west. Now, if we point west from Tasmania, how are we pointing at the east? From where I'm sitting, I'm facing south. North is behind me. Makes that west. Point up a bit. It's Western Australia. Directly above Western Australia, from here, is China. So how is China to the east when they're west of us? We've obviously come full circle, haven't we? Now, how's this going to happen? The government's already opened the door to them through the territory, through both the territories, through Canberra and through Northern Territory. China owns the port of Darwin. Pretty much owns Darwin. You go to Darwin and find an Australian. You got to go a bit further south and into Alice Springs, where all the drunks are at. They keep them drunk for a reason. Have you noticed in the territories, they got them drunk, they got them stupid, they got them inbred, and then they put them in the Northern Territory at least, and they put them into camps. Like Alice Springs. Oh, we've got a problem here? Yeah, no shit. Well, now all of a sudden, everything in Canberra is decriminalised. In a territory. We go to jail for what they don't even get a criminal record for. Where Parliament House is run from. The United States of Israel's having the red carpet rolled out for them by Barnaby Joyce and Pauline Hanson. Oh, make no mistake, they're not on a different team to any of them. They all go to the same building and work for government. They go to the new Parliament House, which is an underground building in a territory. Think about what that represents. An underground building in a territory that we can't go into. And they're supposed to work for us. Why do you vote for them? Why are you playing this game? Stupid. Yes, we know these arguments are set up on purpose. Do I think Trent's in on it? No, I don't think he has the thespianic skills. Nor do I think he has the scruples to realise he's being gaslit into these fights. Is it a noble argument? Yeah, it is. But why are we having it? Why are you being gaslit into having the argument at all? Cafe locked out, or whatever they call themselves. They're trying to push that shit. Over the weekend, Michael Gray Griffiths trying to push racial arguments between Islam and Israel and Australia by playing the reverse game. Let's force it down people's necks. How about we just don't do it at all? How about we go, you're a decent human being, you're a decent human being, you don't cause me any drama. We might have slightly different faith ideologies, but why would we let religion get in the way of that? If you can get along well as neighbours. See, faith isn't the problem, it's religion. It's kind of like your private parts. Don't pull it out in public because it only creates problems. Well, I always find myself explaining to people, they look at it funny. I said, no, don't get me wrong. It's not an idol. It's a statement. It's a statement to all those people who go to church and to everyone else that I wear my sins and transgressions round my neck like a millstone. I do not worship that thing at all. That represents something really bad. That represents the world's only perfect man being murdered by the Romans. And the Pharisees who were profiting by misrepresenting the people to the Romans, just like the council does. Just like the police do. Just like local members of parliament do. They're not your representative to them. It's their representative to you. That's why they swear. That's why they make a promissory affirmation to the state instead of an oath to the people. They don't want to address this at the council. They don't want to. They think I'm being a cunt. No, not at all. Every time they refuse to address these things, it just screams louder that they are not working for us. But addressing it forces them to work for us, which means that they then have to admit that they have been working for somebody else's agenda. See, these arguments are set there on purpose to keep us squabbling with each other while we are infiltrated from within in a political coup d'etat to become the 52nd state of the United States of Israel. It's happening right under your nose, and if you can't see it, perhaps you need to get your eyes out of your phone because you're not going to find the answer in there. Where do you think the technology came from in the first place? Everybody walking around with an iPhone has got a little piece of Israel in their pocket. Benjamin Netanyahu said that himself. You're not going to find the answer in there. The answer's next door. The answer's up the road. The answer's in your own house. The answer's across the road. The answer's at the shop, walking around staring at their phones. Remember when people used to take their phones off their kids for spending too much time on it, when internet was limited? Internet was limited full stop because we didn't have the bandwidth once. You had an hour. You kind of had to share that bandwidth with neighbours and stuff. You had an hour. If you wanted more, you had to pay for more. You still got to pay for it, but now we're forced to use it. It went from being a privilege and a handy tool for us to the tool that's being used to control us. The technology you own soon owns you. Hello, McFly. Oh, I'm out of caffeine. So they'd rather fudge numbers and present silly little slideshows that actually don't tell us anything, but it looks good. You know, it's filibuster. It's filibuster, word salad. Hyperbole and polity speak at best. That at the end of it you walk away and they actually didn't tell me anything. They just put a bunch of numbers on things that have project names and still doesn't tell me what that money's actually been spent on. Park benches, new signage for Steve Cons, new tinted glazed windows, new security, new cameras to watch us, which wouldn't be needed if everyone just stopped letting the state raise their kids with blue-haired fruitcakes in charge and bureaucratic legislation instead of law. So there's this thing with kids, right? You get a bad kid and everyone knows that kid's name. And they know who those kids belong to. They know what house they come from. Everyone knows them. No one knows my kids' names. I've left nothing to the state. Nothing. No one knows my kids' names. I remember my father used to tell me to pull my head in. And he used to go off his dick at me at times when I was fucking up. Oh, sorry, I swore. Why? He owned a business, and that reflected bad on the family, which reflected bad on the business, which reflected bad on his ability to provide for the family. There's a lot of things I don't like about my dad, but there's a lot of things that I learnt too. If everyone knows your kid's name, it's either for really good things or because they're a little cunt. And there's not many kids doing much good. It's on you. It's not on the state. It's not on the school. It's on you as a mother and a father. Where is the father? In jail? Is he there? Or were you convinced by lawyers that you need to divorce? Home-wrecking scumbags they are. So yeah, they'd rather talk about nothing burgers, have rage bait arguments, you know, rage bait and gaslit arguments. Go back 12 months. Exactly the same thing happened 12 months ago with Councillor Trent Aiken. It happens every year, and he falls for it every year. Why? Because it keeps him out of voting discussions. It keeps him out of discussions where they'll vote on things in his absence. I'll guarantee that last night, and if he's not back by the next meeting, there'll be things like he's stood down from council. He stood down. So there'll be a whole bunch of stuff that he probably doesn't agree with going through right now. And there'll probably be things that you and I agree with. And believe me, there's a lot I don't agree with when it comes to Trent. But credit where it's due. I don't have to agree with him on everything. That's the whole point of being human. We don't have to agree on everything. If someone doesn't agree with you on something, doesn't necessarily mean you're both wrong, or one of you is wrong either. It just means you don't agree on something, and what works for you might not work for them. But one thing we should all agree on is we need to put these silly differences in a 6-foot hole where they belong. See, it's funny, we have this conceptualisation of an imaginary pendulum of ideology of left versus right, blue versus red. But every time one swings to the left, the other one swings to the right. There's two pendulums. One swings to the left, the other swings to the right. Leftist ideologies start taking over. Right-wing politics starts hopping up and down and creating problems in society. Snaps back the other way. Right-wing ideology starts to take over, and the left ideology starts creating problems in society. So we go from MAGA and Democrats, this is an American version of it, from MAGA and the Democrats to Republicans and Antifa, domestic terrorists and far right rednecks, whatever you want to call it, the MAGA movement. Like, there's always these two. One causes problems for the other one every time. Never the twain shall meet. Because then we'd all realise how silly we've been and start working together. If we could just get both them pendulums to stop in the middle and realise there's people at the top swinging those. The puppet masters. See, they used to have to do it physically. Now they've got our digital cage. A digital cave, our Plato's allegory of the cave has just gone digital. Now they can do it digitally. How? Well, what keeps coming up on your algorithms on your social media? What's algorithmically being fed to you? This is why I don't like digital shit. I know enough about it to know we should be leaving it alone. I know how the old bait and switch rug pull works. Whether it's gaslighting kids at school, politics, or online. The way it's set up is so that whatever you watch, it feeds more of that to you. So that's just reinforcing your narrow bandwidth of thought, beliefs. Indoctrination. You was indoctrinated that way by your parents in your generation or whatever. And the people you hang around with, the peer pressure, what clubs you join, what pub you drink at, what social club you join at work. What football team you barrack for, what Holden or Ford, I don't actually give a shit. It just reinforces that and reinforces that, and you no, I'm right, because like everything says I'm right. No, everything you look at says you're right. You're stuck in an echo chamber, a tunnel vision, narrow bandwidth echo chamber, and everyone is. And never the twain shall meet. Nobody will ever look up and broaden their bandwidth. I'm talking about our analogue bandwidth, not the digital bandwidth, but the digital bandwidth is what's feeding you. So the other team are doing the same thing. But then they had little arguments and they split off and then they split off and then they split off and then they split off, and now you've got all these different rightist ideologies, all these different leftist ideologies, and not even for 1 minute thinking, hang on, we're just people. There's no such thing. It's all in your head. You're mentally ill and you don't realise it. Nobody tells you you're mentally ill. And anyone that does, you take offence at it. Why? You have the right to be offended. Maybe you're offended because you don't want to admit you've been stupid, so you'd rather just double down and fight that person till they go away, so you don't have to face yourself. You don't want to admit that you're part of the problem. So I come full circle back to they didn't want to talk about the misdirection of frustrations, how we're just handballed around everywhere, like I was saying. They don't want to talk about the Marinus link, which affects us all. We're not being represented by anybody. And as soon as you try to represent yourself or the people in your community, it's la 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 la, fuck you, fuck you. It's time to walk away. Absolutely time to walk away from this. Well past time to walk away from this shit. How are you going to walk away once Dream Theatre gets hold of you? You know, the thought police, they're already coming after us. You can't say this, you can't think, you can't say that, which means you can't think this. See, once you stop people from saying things, eventually they stop thinking it because saying it gets them into trouble. What does that create? Newspeak. Newspeak is what kills wrong think. There's no such thing as wrong think. If you think that everything you say is wrong, you're not going to think at all, are you? This is what George Orwell was talking about in 1984. The cameras are only a little piece of the puzzle. When they say the war is for your mind, this is what they mean. Peace of mind, your own mind, your mind's eye, critical thought. It is a spiritual war for your soul. It's soul crushing. It's soul crushing to think that you cannot have authentic, critical, individual thought. Otherwise, what are you? You're just a meat train walking around staring at your fucking Babylonian death rectangle.